Hello, everyone. How have you all been doing amidst this pandemic and quarantine vibes? This is definitely the time for all of us to put our well being and that of our families at the forefront of our progressions. Let us have a mental health check conversation with our guest and multi talented friend, MsBenn. She's going to share her experience with systemic counseling sessions versus ancestral counseling workshops. And we both will discuss our observations about spirituality, motherhood, reality TV, and community. Hey, Sistren, how are you doing today? Welcome and introduce yourself to the community.
Greetings, my name is Amanda, and I'm also known as MsBenn. I dance, I sing, I'm a certified massotherapist, and a first-time mom.
Thank you for choosing to be here with us today. You and I have known each other for some time now, and the root of our friendship has been self-work via women-led groups that focus on addressing the unseen to resolve the seen. Would you agree?
Strongly agree.
Excellent. Today, I wanted to have a conversation with you about, systemic counseling and what it is in tradition versus what it could be in tradition with our ancestral way of communicating in groups with women and men that lead to the root of why it is that we have these patterns that we as human beings portray in our everyday lives. So you had shared with me that you had your own experience with systemic counseling. So I wanted to know if you wanted to share about what led you to engage with that in the first place.
I was actually forced into and kind of threatened to doing so, just because I was in a really bad situation, which had myself and my son at risk, and so it was just advised, and if I didn't, then I would be putting both of us at risk, and so, this would be the outcome, and just talk of having my child removed from my home, and that wasn't happening.
Yes.
So I was just going to do what I was supposed to do, or what I had to do at that time. But going in, or now realizing going in, was just layering things. It just didn't get as in depth as it is with the ancestral counseling that I did.
Okay. So what would you say was the difference that you noticed between the systemic counseling sessions versus the ancestral workshops that you were able to partake in?
The approach is quite different. So you want to know of my personal experience?
Yes, if you could share in your own words if you could share in your own words what your experience was in the sessions that we would call them the assessor, because they are making assessments or judgments on what they feel is best for you, and with them mandating and stating that you need their services, what did you feel you received that was beneficial or that was solution oriented?
Okay.
Yes, from that experience with them in those counseling sessions, did you take away anything that you were able to apply to your life that made you feel better and more resolved in your life, or did you find yourself in the same place? What was your, like, in your own words, what was your experience?
Well, I'm gonna get a little naked right now. And so I was seeing a counselor for domestic abuse.
Okay.
And So usually, you know, one-on-one sessions, they want you to be able to identify what abuse is and identify yourself in that sort of situation and how to cope with it, cope with that situation, you know, self-confidence, trying to build up that confidence in that way. What Justice really did for me was really to identify the pattern. You know, mostly just icing on the cake. First is, you know, spiritual work is, where is it coming from? Why does it keep showing up in every situation? What is the common denominator? Like, what's going on here, you know? So I, especially like when I was doing my counseling, I was just getting into spiritual work, you know, and so it was really just a great transition. So it wasn't like my counseling just, it wasn't enough, you know, and it's not like you get to see them on a daily basis and you're given homework and you're progressing in certain ways. It's just like, okay, we went over this, all right, cool. But at the same time, there were quite a few distractions as well that I was trying to work through. The spiritual work, you welcome those distractions, right? So it's like putting the core issue on pause, and we'll deal with it after we're done dealing with other things. Excuse me, versus, well, why are you getting distracted? What is this distraction? And then how it links to the next, and how it links to, and how everything comes in full circle to that core issue. And being able to, being comfortable with yourself. In counseling, I actually led a group self-massage and self-relaxation. And I have never seen those ones, because, you know, like, it's still COVID, right? So we would meet once a month in, like, an open space. And after leading that class, it was just like, I've never seen them so relaxed. And I was not, and I was just so satisfied, you know, seeing just like a piece of where they can get to. And, you know, my counselor acknowledged that gift in me, you know, and I was like, yeah, that really made me feel great. So at that point, I was put in a position where I'm seeing what this work is really doing for me, what it looks like from the outside, you know. So when I was seeing my counselor, I was seeing her maybe every other day in the beginning, or like calling twice a week, and then it was once a week, and then it was once every 2 weeks, and then it was every 3 weeks or once a month. And you know, the last call that we had, she was just like, you know, I guess our work is done. You know, she told me that she is meeting with women, you know, it's like 3 years, sometimes it takes them 5 years to get where I'm at this point, and she's still counseling, you know, and she's like, but like, I just grown and moved so drastically in just a couple of months, you know, and she was asking me, like, what's your secret? And I was like, like, I didn't even know how to respond, because I was like, how are you asking me this?
Exactly.
You know, but I did have to explain to her, like, she did know that I was seeking other therapies. And I had told her, I'm like, it's not like I could just welcome you into the group. You know, I can't, it's not for you. You know, I'm like, it's just go through state. I'm like, it's not for you, you know, but I'm like, the difference is, it's that I'm not, like, it's not just identifying the issue and talking about it. It's actually working through it and healing from it. Like, there's levels, you know, and I'm like, and you just don't, like, anyways, I was just being very clear, you know, like, it didn't take me necessarily to that level, but it brought me to, how can I say it? It brought me to the bridge, and I just had to cross it at that point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely appreciate that you've shared this with us with such transparency. What I want to really reiterate for those that may be coming late to the conversation or maybe in the background, I want them to understand that when you went to the systemic counseling sessions, they themselves were marveled at your progression, that they wanted to know, you know, how did you do it, and where did this transformation come from, and if you could even share, because there are other women, other people that could benefit from this ancestral counseling workshop.
Self-work, it's been years, but it's just, like, it took me a long time to get to this point. Yes. You know, so I just don't want to give certain people hope or despair or like, oh, well, how come I'm not getting it, or other people like, yeah, me too, you know, type of thing. Like, I don't want no one to put a timeline on themselves.
Yes.
Prior to going to my ancestral, like I call them circles, meetups.
Yes.
Prior to that, when COVID actually hit,
yes,
I stumbled. I say stumbled because I have no idea how I came about the group, but it was called 15-Minute Mind.
Yes.
And I took that class every day, Monday to Friday. And it was just, it was so liberating. That's
yes.
the word, liberating.
Yes.
See, I've never said it before. Like, it's not familiar with my tongue. Yeah. Liberating, yes. Encouraging, supportive. And we were using 15 minutes a day to change our mindset, see things differently.
Yes.
Speak out of clarity, knowing who we are, and forgiveness. Like, I was doing that all through COVID. It's still here, but I did that for a good 4 or 5 months.
Yes.
And so, they have noticed I always had this strong will, you know, to keep going. And I'm like, yes, but I also have a child at home. Like, I wasn't sure what they were necessarily expecting from me. As I didn't know what to expect from them either, you know, but it was I shouldn't have to say it, but like, it was kind of shocking to get their response. It was just as equal as shocking. It was so honoring and humbling to hear somebody acknowledge my efforts,
yes,
acknowledge my work, not even knowing to what extent I am going in and going deep, you know.
Yes.
So that it was just as much, you know, as to wondering, like, I can't even imagine, like, where else would I be at this moment. Like, I'm not going through this for nothing.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, gratitude brought me to the next phase, you know, as you know, it's like a purse. Okay. Perfect example.
Yes.
Women have purses.
Mm-hmm.
Women love purses.
Yes.
Women love to fill them purses with shite, receipts from 2 years ago, lip gloss, eyelash, makeup, everything, paper,
Yes.
pen, all of it, every Kleenex,
yes.
white, a pull-up, a squish-up pull-up in the corner. Anyways, we have everything in there.
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell you that at the point of COVID, that when COVID hit, my purse was empty.
Mm.
I threw everything out.
Yeah.
And now what I started putting in my purse was weightless.
Yes.
Self-love, time, gratitude, music, more self-love. Come on. Come on.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So now it's at the point where I have gained all of these tools and I just walk around with it. And my aim is not to lose any of those things.
Yes, that's beautiful.
Not to replace it with nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And so that decluttered my mind. And just prepared my soul, my body, just got me ready to do this ancestral work, because I could not have been able to do this. So I would not have been here at this time last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or the year before. So when you started seeing the signs, and so you had asked me how long it took me, I didn't count.
Okay. You were in the moment.
That's what happens when you're in the present. And I'm well aware that time don't belong to me, so I don't really watch time to that extent, you know?
Well, I'm happy that you did articulate that from your perspective for those that are concerned with how long is it going to take for them to feel a change or see a change within their lives. Because oftentimes we forget that whatever age we are, we've accumulated a lot of that time, you know, and so all of those experiences that have led to our trauma and whatever we want to call it, our baggage, all that stuff, it cannot be necessarily restored and look different with just a couple of weeks or a couple of months. It might take the same equal amount of time that it took you to get in the place that you are to get to the place that you envision yourself being. And as you discussed, you've been doing the self-work for a long time. And it sounds like practically your whole life you've had an awareness to go within yourself and to do the self-work. And what I wanted to discuss, what it has come up for me as we're talking about this, is the pandemic has brought out different things in different people. And I find it very interesting when you look at the different conversations that people are having, either as just themselves or as a collective, as a family. Where is their focus centered, you know? And I say this to say that this is a great time for those that are experiencing certain challenges within themselves, within their families and their communities, that they should start to do that self-work. It's a perfect time, because that's what you're ultimately going to need in order to see some change. And that's the only way you're going to start to see some change, is starting to do that work. And that reminds me as well, in terms of motherhood, you and I were having a conversation about different things. And one of those things was what we were observing in reality TV, and the opportunity for certain people who have that platform to express their spirituality and to be transparent in their mental health. And one of the notable ones, I guess, in our Black community at the time was Tamar Braxton, with her experience with her spirituality and motherhood. And you had made an interesting point. I wanted to know if you wanted to share that with our audience today.
First, I wanted to backtrack on when we were mentioning, like, now is a good time to look into this work or to start this work. There is no time. Like I guess I'm disagreeing, or maybe coming from a different angle. But because maybe we're saying that COVID is a good time to do that. But I was in a position during COVID to be able to acknowledge this. At that time I was at the point where I was ready to do that work. But I also have met individuals that have still had to work, who are not able to sit alone. Darkness still scares them. You know, so I think that this, maybe you're speaking to those that are drawn to it and are starting to get an understanding of it. But there's still some people that are sitting here, have no idea necessarily what we're talking about. And I would feel bad if, without a lack of understanding or understanding what the work is that we've done, to just astray and go to anybody who says that they do spiritual work and then they have a bad experience. You know, so again, I on my standpoint, I just want to say that nothing happens before it's time. Now, let me tell you, I had a burnout. I didn't learn then. I had eye surgeries, had to lose sight to gain insight. I didn't learn then. I had to have a whole human being, okay, which brings me back to motherhood, to learn, to hear, to shut up and listen, okay? So I advise that you kind of not allow all of that to happen to you, but hey, like me, some people don't learn. So, but bringing it back to motherhood, and what I saw Tamar Braxton doing, that was just a validation. When you're doing ancestral spiritual work, when you are doing healing, and when you have mastered self-love, and you see those, I'm not one to watch TV. Like, if there's a movie on Netflix, something old, I'm like, okay, cool, but all of a sudden, I got this live streaming link, and I just started exploring, and then again, like, I stumbled across this show, and I was like, this is where I'm at. I get it, you know, to the point where you don't even want to talk to other people about it, because you don't know how they're going to respond and how they're acting, and, you know, but I admire that she was so vulnerable to go through that work on TV. And I liked that we saw from the producer's perspective that they were like, you signed up for us to see it all, you know, and she was setting boundaries, but she had to set those boundaries. I was disappointed about her whole boyfriend and, you know, just coming out of an abusive relationship right into a dominating one. Like, as a woman who was just, like, she wasn't just divorced, but, you know, she was divorced, and, you know, I looked up to her as someone who came out of domestic violence and still is finding her work and self-healing, and you can see that she's starting a new relationship and, you know, and moving on in life. But, you know, by the time the show finished, it just didn't give me the best impression. But again, I can tell, like, I learned from people's mistakes, and like, I saw that, you know, and I do wish and hope for her the best. But you can't learn the same lesson twice. So,
I guess it depends on who you ask. Some people are relearning their lessons over and over again.
Right. Or you're just being tested. Are you still failing that test? You know, like it's hard to say, but again, some people don't learn.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did like the show. I do encourage people who aren't into reality shows, and I encourage you to just take a listen, take a watch, just one. Only takes one, so.
Yeah.
And actually, talking about therapy, did you watch the Braxton Family Values or whatever it is?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is with all the sisters now, and one of the sisters, Tracy, this is the importance about family or friends that relate to you as family, just people that are close to you. You love communication. Check in on your friends. Check in on your strong friends. So Tracy is one of the Braxton sisters, and her father and her brother sat her down and said, "Yo, you need to see a therapist. You got some issues, and we support you, but we know that you need this." And she went. And you saw her break down. And honestly, like, I've broken down in my sessions, you know? I'm like, that was just the icing. And it was so, it was so refreshing to see another sister being healed.
Absolutely.
I
was just going to say that for those that are unclear, there are two different shows. I don't remember if you remember the name of Tamar's own. I don't remember if it was something with her, something about her life in particular.
Get Your Life.
Get Your Life.
What it's called.
Yes, that's her. I think that's her catchphrase. And then you have the Braxton's Family Values, which is the entire family's reality show. It reminded me when you said to see the family and friends and community loved ones come around and support those that are in need, to go and actually facilitate therapy and do that self-work, that is something that is definitely important. And it can be something where when certain people don't feel that they have the space to explore what's going on, their thoughts, their feelings and emotions, then we kind of see them acting out in certain ways. And, you know, it reminds me of sometimes you'd either see, you know, in reality TV, we had that conversation before about, like, you know, when in our culture, as it would be, there's this reading that we tend to do of one another. And I remember saying to you that when it comes to that, it would seem as though it's coming from a malicious place or a place of wanting to just be mean and vindictive. However, when you go and look at below the surface of reading a person, it's like you are wanting to hold up the mirror to them for them to see the things they're not able to see. And I feel that our community and that our people as a whole were more spiritually inclined and tapped into who we are more than we think. And so sometimes a reading may come across as just being shady, you know, the salt, like I was thinking that it's a salty version of a divination. And, you know, we've had that conversation before. So it's really just like the act of foretelling, you know, by supernatural or magical means. And it's a way of discovering or telling on what is hidden, you know, the unseen. So that's how we can look at that. And you have family members like Tamar and Tracy who, you know, they really want to reveal the dirty laundry, not to cause harm, but to heal their ancestral patterns. And what I really took away from when it was Tamar's show, Get Your Life, her aspect with the spirituality and the dream work, that was what drew me to the show, was because of the whole dreams and what it has for those of us in our lives that enjoy accessing our dreams and understand the power behind it. So I found it very interesting, the dynamics that played out on that, and how some of it seemed to be used to make her out to be either the angry black woman, as she said, also demonizing spirituality and tradition. And as you know, on my with my way of being, I enjoy pulling out facts and receipts. So I did pull out some facts that are in the Bible that did discuss that dreams actually are included in the Bible, and it's not something that is dynamic. So for those of you that are interested, you can find that in Acts 2:17, and it says, "And in the last days it shall be, God declares, that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams." And then it also mentions, there was another quote in First Corinthians 7. This one was about premarital sex, and I wanted to bring this one up because David was so adamant that, it's demonic and all these kind of things, but he wasn't following his own doctrine, because he wanted to engage in premarital sex with Tamar, and in fact was quite upset when she said that she had to do her spiritual work, So then to those...
Hold on. Before you read into that, because he wasn't calling out names and stuff, but... So David actually is her new boyfriend that I was mentioning.
Okay.
Tamar's new boyfriend. And when I was talking about I was disappointed how it was ending, it was just, he was completely against the dream work, that Tamar was doing. And it was like everybody on the planet, that is watching this show, including the person that she's working with, including her herself, knows that she is overcoming something.
Yes.
And she is getting through it. And it is drastic, and she needs her space. And someone so controlling in that way, like as I was saying, you don't learn the same thing. You can't learn the same lesson twice.
No, you can't.
Your ex-husband was very controlling in everything that you did. Right now, she's doing work that is, cutting those strings of allowing people to define your day-to-day basis and who you are. And I find that her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, I don't know what they are at the moment, and maybe you can remind me on why the show even ended or how, because my perspective was that, she couldn't continue her dream work anymore because it wasn't sitting well with David, because it wasn't of Jesus, or, he couldn't find anywhere in the Bible where it said that, dream work is healing, or, I know I really did not appreciate that as a woman who is going through what she's going through, and what I was personally holding on to, and I was so proud of what she was going through, but it just seemed like as if she stopped doing it because her new man was not feeling it, because it wasn't biblical or Christian-like. So sorry, I just wanted to put that into perspective. So yes, continue with your next passage.
Yeah, no, I absolutely appreciate you adding that to the conversation. I'm not clear really as to why it ended. However, there was a lot of conversation during the show and after the show where it would appear that Tamar felt misrepresented on what she wanted to present. And I do feel within herself, she had an inner conflict of this DreamWorks, her spirituality, and from what I was getting, was the real thing that she wanted to get to know about herself and express. And at the same time, she's experiencing a lot of different things in her own human being self that she doesn't necessarily feel that she was ready to share with the cameras. And the conflict in that was that apparently she signed up for all of that, and I don't think she really understood just what that meant. It's one thing to sign to that on paper, and it's another thing to be in that moment experiencing and as you had mentioned at the beginning, being a little bit naked, you're going to share, you're going to be transparent. That's what she was, being completely naked and vulnerable in front of us. However, I appreciate in this reality television world those people that can be courageous enough to expose that aspect of themselves, not just exposing to just being, just for ratings. It's one thing. However, the one that makes us all look inside of ourselves and feel something, that's what I will watch. Anything that has to do with our people. It doesn't matter what the title of it is, as long as when I come away from watching it, I feel uplifted. And I personally felt uplifted in the aspect of watching a woman seeking to do her self-work, and at the same time what it looks like when every single person around you is attempting to disrupt you in one way or another from doing your spiritual work. And the passage that I'll end on this part of the conversation with is just to say that for those that doesn't matter what your religion or your spiritual or whatever your philosophies that you participate in, my thing is, I personally object to when you're pointing the finger, saying that this is the reason, this is what you measure your reasoning or your opinions or whatever upon. And then in the same way that you're pointing that finger, the other fingers are pointing to what you are doing or what you should be doing. And what I mean by that is in 1 Corinthians 7 and 8, it goes, to the unmarried and the widows, I say that it is good for them to remain single as I am. But if they cannot exercise self-control, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. So that is for her boyfriend at the time. I don't know if they're still together, but for him, when he was pressing her or, seeking for proof in the Bible to allow her to continue her spirituality, it's like that same Bible is showing that the two of you should be abstaining from burning with passion, though. That's what it says in your Bible, and you're not adhering to it. So the reason why, again, it's important to know the facts and to know how to articulate these things is because there are times where in our families, in our communities, in our workplaces, we feel manipulated from the things that we know to be true, or gaslighted. And as we know, I talk about this on the channel all the time, that it is when you know a thing to be true and you have others who are either sanctioned in their power or have certain type of authority, that they're going to abuse this power now and tell you that what you know to be true is not true. So you don't have to fight. You don't have to get upset. You just pull out the facts. And those of us born in this era, it's very simple. You just go onto Google, you type in what you want to know in relation to the Bible or in relation to what you want to know, and that's it. You don't have to argue about it. And, so that whole thing that she experienced, she would not have had to experience. She would have just pulled that out and let it speak for itself. Yeah, so...
not everybody's quick like that on their toes,
Well, we need to be quick like that on our toes.
At the same time, this is where communication is just so very important, and I'm thinking, I'm sure at some point it was known, that, or when you tell somebody that you're dating, I'm working on myself spiritually.
Right.
First of all, I don't even know if that's something you can do getting into a relationship.
I agree.
But, and this is, quite a lot of different opinions and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. If you're in a marriage or so on and so forth, like, sometimes you have to take a step back to get into yourself. It doesn't mean you have to get divorced. It doesn't mean you have to stop being married. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, like, you really need to keep your focus on thyself, on I and I. So, when you explain to people that you're doing things spiritually, we have the assumption that they even know what that is.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know how to support that.
No,
and I feel that at that point, like, boyfriend was getting, in his feels, because he's just like, well, I'm not doing it spiritually. Like, you know, not understanding that, again, because it's probably not your time.
Exactly.
You know, but we also have to learn how to support our partners, or support our partners in dealing with us, going through our ish spiritually, but also helping those that are going through their ish spiritually. If they need the space, give them the space.
Exactly.
And when somebody is saying, I'm working on myself, man, all that, well, wasn't me. What did I do? It's like, what can I do better? You can't do nothing better, honey, because you're not the problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was, I really had to.
Yes.
That's a lesson. That's a very strong lesson that I learned.
Oh, well, we appreciate you sharing that. It's so good to be able to see the lessons in what shows up in our life, and to be able to be with them and accept them and see how we can apply them, you know, further into our lives. So it's so good that you shared that. This reminds me of another person that we enjoy and we have in common, Dr. Iyanla Vanzant. This time I wanted to give much respect to her and the work that she's doing in our community. She is a self-affirmed foundational Black American and a Native American. She uses her medicine with those that ask her for help to do their self-work. She has said that she teaches by her experience rather than theory, as she found that this approach works for people. And the generational dysfunction must be broken by the family to heal their ancestral patterns. And I wanted to add that to the conversation because it reminded me of what you were just mentioning, that there are some people that are unable to understand certain modalities and certain ways of doing one's work. And it is very intrinsic to our culture and to our traditions, because one might find a lot of stagnation and a lot of resistance when they are following or adhering to a cultural practice for their spirituality that is not going to work for them. So what I say about that is Dr. Iyanla Vanzant, in her own words, she has mentioned that she has part Native American in her family, and she utilizes that medicine in the work that she does, and it's more through the experience. But she has a lot of theory work, a lot of accommodations under her belt, in which she could say that, you know, I use my doctorates or I use all of the other theories in order to do what needs to be done. But she said many, many different times that Black people, we have a different experience, and that as such we have to go through our lineages in order to get to the restoration of that. And what I remember is that I've actually witnessed that in that cognitive dissonance and that resistance that can happen with people who don't get what you're doing, is that they can see someone like Dr. Iyanla Vanzant doing her work, and you know, when it comes to tradition, it might get dirty in the way that things get done, because you got to go in the mud, you got to go in the darkness, and it might not look the way theory has presented it, so clinical and so aesthetic, you know. And a person who comes from a certain mindset, a certain type of theory, they could cast aspersions and look upon the work that she does and the work that we do in all different traditions as a lesser than or primitive, even though I keep reminding people that the etymology of that word means first people of its kind. That means you would be doing your first work. You'd be doing the work of nature. So I wonder what your thoughts are on this, theory versus tradition.
On this ancestral tradition that we're doing right now?
Yeah, that and anything else that, you know, you've come across in your own experiences.
I just think, for the most part, stick to what works.
Yes.
If you spoke to me about you spoke to me about healing a year ago, I wouldn't be listening. I knew there were things that I needed to deal with, but nothing, like I could not do it on anyone's time, you know, on anyone else's time. I don't have a problem with how people address certain situations. My problem is when you're not open to listening to how other people deal with their process or,
yes,
you know, their way of living.
Yes.
We're just in a time where there's no good enough excuse that we can't have conversations.
I love that you said that. I agree.
Yeah. And when you are trying to work on your lineage, and you get to anybody older than you, and like, and you're just like, oh, okay, so we don't talk. Okay, it gets very difficult.
Yeah.
That's not how the family structure is supposed to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, in any religion that you look at. Well, anyways, I can't say any, because, you know, there are crooked ones out there. Anyhow. I'm not sure if I'm quite answering your question, but I just, did I answer it?
Yes, what I took away from your answer is that we should all respect one another's choices, and that you personally don't have any issue with what ones want to do or not do, just as long as we respect everyone's choice to choose what they're doing, you know. So, with that,
if we keep disagreeing, when will we ever find a solution? Like, you don't need to hate me. We don't need to hate one another for not liking how they responded to you, to your, like, you know, to how you're expressing yourself and so on and so forth.
yes,
We shouldn't have to ever be in that sort of situation.
yes.
Like, as much, anyways, I can't even say that if you don't have self-respect, you definitely are not respecting anybody else.
Right.
That makes sense to most people, but that's how I see it. You know, so, not everything is for me either. I am getting out of habit. And you know what? Also, one thing as as raising a child, I know how religion or Christianity was presented. My difficulty right now is that this is very new. So it's not like I have examples to live by or run by. And thank God he's not at the point where he's saying, well, why and where is this coming from and so on and so forth, because I'm asking the same question. So I'm a lot more accepting, and see, times I just call on my ancestors. You know, you were already in this position, this lead position. You know, so just come over me and get me busy. You know, like, and I just hope to not let you down. Most definitely will not. Why? Because I learned how to listen. I learned how to be silent and listen and just accept how things are. So those two you can't go wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, everybody has their own traditions that they feel that they should follow, and I don't go against that. But what happens also is that there's a shortage in the fuse, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we can do the same thing together. You know, I mean, when you do energy work, when you do self-work, you know, everything that aligns with you at that time, or that what needs to be in your place is directly in front of you. It's literally just a thought reach away. You know, and so I've noticed that people just like
yes,
disappear, gone, pop. You know, like bubbles when you blow bubbles and they pop.
Yes.
Like
yes.
people are gone, like they're just gone.
Yes.
Gone.
Yes.
And honestly, I don't really miss much of them. I think there's only like 2 people that I do miss. And they're not that far. You know,
yes.
It's just different stages of healing as well. That's a little difficult to when talking about dating and doing this healing work.
Yes.
Is even when you meet somebody who's on the same path, they're not at the same point. You understand? And that sometimes is difficult to just give them their space. But everybody has to live their own life, and they have to walk at their own pace. The effects of that. But yeah, at the same time, like your path clears. And again, people who are not accustomed to not being distracted, that don't have so much noise on, that don't have so many people like in their way, they're not comfortable with that. So you could go left real quick. Real quick. But yeah, I truly believe there's a lot of people that are in alignment, that need to be in alignment with me. I am being tested on different energies that come my way. When I mean energies, like I'm not talking about like aliens and stuff. Like I'm talking about a character trait, or you know, a certain type of personality. That, you know, it's like that person comes around. You learned your lesson the first time. What are you to do this time? You know, like those are the type of things that happen on a daily basis.
Yes.
And yeah, we just need to be. We don't need to be anyway. Be ready. Be ready.
Yes, and I do like how you articulated that last point about the energies, what they are. You know, to conclude our conversation, and you know, we should have another one. But to conclude our conversation with that is that that to me is how we notice how we can weed out those who are here to distract us, is because when you truly want to do your work and you just want to do what needs to be done, you're not interested in an argument, you're not interested in being right or wrong, you just want to do what you came here to do. That means everyone involved is just going to do what needs to be done. So if it's having a conversation, doing whatever needs to be done in terms of those therapies, it's going to be done. And those that are distracting you with all the reasons why you should not be doing what you're doing, attempting to exemplify all your failures without solutions, these are forms of distractions along the way. It has been an immense pleasure, as always, conversing and exchanging with you, Sistren. Do you have any upcoming projects to share with us?
Actually, I'll be hosting a Black History Month special, as I yearly do on CKUT 90.3 FM, ckut.ca, for our international listeners. So every Tuesday for the month of February, between 3 and 5 p.m., I'll be hosting a little something that I've been putting together. You can check out my social on IG. I am MsBenn. You know, I still have my classes, my dance classes that I'm teaching, whether you're looking for private or group sessions. But for the most part, I'm going within, and I am doing some deep cleansing. And so that's what I'll be for the most of my time. And for massotherapy sessions, you can always call me if you're in the Montreal area. And, till next time, sending you love and light to each and every one of you. Trust the process. Take a deep breath. Stretch it out. And know that everything is going to be okay.
We love that. We thank you. That the information will be in the description box. And it has been an immense pleasure, as always, conversing and exchanging with you. And I really do appreciate your ability to be transparent and share as much as you can for growth in these conversations that we're having. So as we conclude this, I want to say, everyone, you've heard this conversation here first. Systemic counseling versus ancestral counseling workshops. I want everyone to remember, if you are interested in participating in the weekly ancestral counseling workshop led by our Queen Mother, please leave a comment below and or contact me via your means of communication to gain access to this private and sacred space for both Black men and women to alchemize their trauma into generational wealth. Likewise, if you have been or anyone you know has been misdiagnosed in the context of discrimination and your mental health versus systemic racism, I welcome you to contact me to share your voice. And as a community, we will alchemize generational trauma into generational wealth. Black people, karma-dominant, powerful beings, we appreciate you, and remember, embrace your nature. It has the roots to restore you.